So, in the pantheon of horror films, you usually have basically two varieties. You have your really highbrow, shooting for the stars, psychological thriller stuff. That's mostly like your major studio productions. And then you have your unabashed cheese, and this is pretty much everything else. The stuff, that, big studios just push out to make a profit. The old Jason movies are a good example. And, all the really, really great degenerate cinema offerings of the 70s and 80s. Way too many to list, but, just throwing some names out there. Texas Chainsaw, uh, The Hills Have Eyes. Even go to the VHS era when you had stuff like Night of the Demons. Just great, great stuff. And every now and then, something happens. There seems to be, and there's not a whole lot of films that fall in this category, and the movie we're looking at today is considered one of the preeminent examples. There are some B movies that, for whatever reason, have retroactively been pumped up to A status, to where they're not just considered really great, cheesy genre sidestep movies, but they're actually considered legitimately great cinema in and of themselves. And that stuff like Night of the Living Dead's pretty much the obvious example. When it came out, pure exploitation sleaze. Now it's being held as a masterpiece. Same thing with Carnival of Souls. When it was first out, it was just drive-in schlock, but now it's considered like a minimalist, U.S. masterpiece. And the film we're exploring today, not a U.S. film, it's from jolly old England, from that great auteur Jacques Tourneur. The same guy who did Cat People and did he do I Walk with a Zombie? I want to say he did. If he didn't, my apologies. And this is considered his magnum opus. And if you're around like hardcore horror nerds, like the ones who pride themselves on being into the really esoteric, who watch foreign films with the subtitles off to really get the director's original intent, you talk to them, they'll tell you this thing is like a masterpiece. Like it's one of the best horror films ever made. And I gotta admit, while I do think it's very, very good for its time frame, I don't really see what all the hype's about. I can see its influence for sure, and like I said, compared to a lot of the stuff out there, it's much, 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 much above average. But all-time masterpiece, no, no, you're really, really elevating it too high. And that film, of course, from 1957, Night of the Demon, alternately known as Curse of the Demon. It's got other alternate titles, but primarily it's known as Night of the Demon. Not to be confused with Night of the Demons from 1988, which is another really, really awesome horror genre but offering, but that's for a different day. All right, so Night of the Demon. Before we get into the general plot and structure of it, the reason why I think it's revered is the fact that number one, it's not really graphic, but it does have a little bit more edge to it than a lot of other films from the 1950s. So you got lots of stuff about sexuality. I mean, there's no nudity or anything like that, but they kind of play it up. They talk about the occult, back when you still had prayer in schools and like anything that was even remotely not Christian was really frowned upon. And you had a guy who was like directly stated as a Satanist. So like not even being around the bush here, going straight to it, the guy's a devil worshiper. So I mean that's pretty interesting. And just watching the structure of the film, there's a lot of like investigator based horror films. Like obviously you can tell the dude who made The Wicker Man loved this movie because it's pretty much the exact same plot. It follows that structure. So have you ever seen a movie about, like a private detective is the primary protagonist and he's hunting down like a serial killer or a monster? It all kind of goes back to Night of the Demon. And I mean, there's a whole lot more good in this movie than there is bad. Uh, Really, the plot structure is pretty straightforward. There is a professor who dies under mysterious circumstances, and an investigator starts looking after this guy who's like a hypnotist who's into the devil and thinks that maybe he has like some sort of role in it. So the movie is really about him kind of getting under this dude's skin and trying to figure out what he's up to. And of course, the guy is named Dr. Carswell. He's saying, no, for real, I can't conjure up demons. Let me show you. And there's this great scene where he goes outside on like a perfectly clear day and he's like, all right, demon winds pop up. And everything starts like floating around like a miniature tornado. But of course, the professor, and he's played by Dana Andrews. And what is his name? What do they call him? I can't remember his name in the movie, but you know he's really really good. And of course he's like a man of science. And he's like, I don't believe any of this. You know, even though you have like monsters running around everywhere, he's being the classical skeptic. And eventually, the movie kind of it does that parallel thing where you don't know if it's like a straight supernatural film, but everything that happens in the movie could also be explained as like completely rational, like The Omen or Don't Look Now, where there's creepy stuff going on, but not anything that couldn't necessarily be explained away like logically. So it's one of those movies. You know, your mileage may vary on how much you enjoy those. So you have like this great scene where like they're doing like a séance around Stonehenge, and ultimately, and the grand finale is great. I really love the way it ends. Uh, when one of the characters gets their big comeuppance. So yeah, I mean all of that is great. I mean the monster is really iconic. I actually remember first time I saw this movie was earlier this year. Like when I saw the monster, I'm like, where have I seen him before? Because obviously now the Demon not really a popular mainstream offering. It's made that much of a influence on society. But now I remember it's because back in the day in the Weekly World News, whenever they did stories about like the devil like coming to Earth or demons popping out of earthquake holes, they would always use the image of the monster in this movie as like the visage of the devil. So that was pretty entertaining. It was a great little nostalgic push. So yeah, I mean it's one of those movies where, all in all, it's very very well done. It's got good acting. It's got a nice solid plot, great ending, decent special effects. But as far as everything kind of amassing into like a totally great whole, I'm not gonna say that. I mean, it's a good film, but it doesn't really do anything like legitimately great. Like, there's no moment in it where you go, "Wow, that's great, that's incredible." It's not really a very tense movie either. I mean, the ending, yeah, where they're on the train and you have the big, grand finale with the monster showing up. I mean, that's cool, but this movie just really takes its time getting anywhere. Like the first hour of the movie is just kind of a slow build and there's a lot of doldrums here and there. It's one of those movies where if you have a short attention span, if you don't like guys just sitting there looking at stuff and having like these really long drawn out discussions where there's not really a whole lot of things going on. I mean, one thing if like they're doing like dinner with Andre, but there's like, so how's the weather? And it's like, come on, just keep going, keep going. We don't have time for this. So yeah, all in all, for what it is, I think it's a good movie. I'm gonna give it three Reese's Ghost Cups out of four. So it is a very high quality production. But for people saying it's like one of the best horror films of all time, come on now, come on now. We all know better. But yeah, it's still really really good. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing just to be able to say you saw it. But just don't expect it to be like an all time masterpiece. It's good, bordering on very, very good, but to say it's like one of the greatest horror films ever made, don't believe the hype. It's good, but it's not that good.